In this lesson, we still have our 5548 that is linked via a fiber channel link to a MDS 9216, and they're participating in some services together with different vSANs that they're sharing between each other over that E port or expansion port on that link. With this lesson, we're going to verify our zoning on our MDS 9216. And we would do that by running show commands such as show zone active, which will show us which zones are currently active in our configuration, as well as show zone set active, which will show us which zones are members of which zone sets and are actually active and running on our switches. We can also do things like show running config zoning, and we will see the specific parts of our running config that show us configuration related to zoning. So let's go ahead and take a look at our switches. Here we have our trusty old 9216i, and in order to do our show commands, we don't need to be in a configuration terminal. So the first thing that I like to do, even though it wasn't in first order on the previous slide, is our show zone set active. This shows us pretty much everything in regards to the zone sets that are actively applied, as well as the zones that have been created. So for instance, I can see that I have all these zones, and if I forget to apply one to a zone set and apply it, it will not be shown here. So if I don't see a zone here, I might have to go back, apply that to a zone set, and then activate that zone set. But here I can see that in our past lesson, we actually created a zone called UCS NetApp 2000 for vSAN 2000, and in that we put a number of PWWNs or port worldwide names that include both the storage and our UCS server, and I can see that those are actually up and running and applied across the fabric for that particular zone. If I want to just see which zones are active, I can actually do my show zone active command. And now I see similar information, but I'm only seeing the particular zones that are active on the network versus which zone sets they're actually a part of. And if I wanted to see what my zone information looked like in my running config, I would do show running config zone. Now I can see that in my running config on my device, here's the different zones that are defined in that configuration. And once again, I can see that my UCS underscore NetApp 2000 vSAN contains these different members on or in my running config. It would also be interesting to take a trip on over to our Nexus 5548. These two devices share configuration for VLAN 2000. So if I do my show zone set active over here, I should see the same exact information. And as I scroll through, in fact, I do. I see that I have a zone named UCS NetApp 2000, and it's associated with vSAN 2000, and it contains the members that I would expect to see there. Now if we go back to our MDS, there is another piece that I wanted to mention. There is a mode for my zones, or two different modes for my zones, and they are called in basic and enhanced. And up until now we have been running in basic, but if I type in zone mode enhanced and press enter, it will change my zoning to the enhanced version, which has a big benefit. So up until now we're running in basic, and I can actually have administrators go into one switch that has vSAN 2000 running on it, for instance my MDS switch, and another administrator go into my Nexus switch, and they can both log in and create zones and make changes, and they could actually apply those zones. So I might have one administrator in the MDS thinking they're making a change, and then after they make their change, somebody goes ahead and writes over their change by putting in a configuration in the Nexus 5000. By going into enhanced mode, it actually locks the fabric so that when somebody is making changes, nobody else can. And that person has a lock on the fabric until they commit those changes, and then once they commit those changes, the fabric actually becomes unlocked. So this can be a very important feature for your environment, and a lot of people use this to help ease their administrative burden and make sure that their changes are only being made by one administrator at a time. There's also other benefits. I encourage you to go look them up in documentation, as far as the fact, for instance, that it enforces and exchanges default zone information, which previously was only locally significant. So there are a lot of good things there. Feel free to do some exploration and find out more information. Finally, there's one more feature that I wanted to take a look at, and this is actually called device aliases. Now, device aliases are a very easy way to represent a device in your Fibre Channel name database, so that if I do a show FCNS database, today I see these PWWNs and their big complex numbers. Wouldn't it be really nice to have a more simplified name to associate with that big long number? And of course we can do that with the device alias database. So when I enter the device alias database, I can then create a device alias for my different PWWN. For instance, I might want this PWWN associated with my UCS B-side fabric interconnect. So I just press enter. So now when I exit out of my device alias database, I can then do device alias commit and press enter. It's going to commit my changes to the device, and when I do my show FCNS database, I can see that I now have an entry for that device called UCS_B. Same thing as if I do a show Floggy database. You can now see that the last entry has a UCS_B. And when I go to create a new zone, I can add my member as a device alias of UCS_B. So it makes adding members very easy, and it makes it easier to look at the different show commands and see the different devices that I'm talking about. So I highly recommend using the device alias feature. Please join me for our next lesson, verifying SAN switch operations.